Hey fans, did you know that Dash is the only digital auction platform built specifically for professional sports teams and their fan bases? It is also your place to score your favorite hockey team's most authentic memorabilia and game day experiences. Dash powers the auctions for your favorite AHL, ECHL, SPHL, NAHL, and USHL hockey clubs, plus many more across sports. Get in on the bidding now by texting DASH to 66866 or visit thesinbin.net and click on Dash Auctions to check out the latest hockey auctions. Dash, making sports bidding so much easier in the digital age. This episode of Monsters Hockey OT is sponsored by Sporfy, the sports video platform that allows you to instantly capture, replay, and share your favorite game highlights, all without having to film. For more information, visit sporfy.com. That's SPORFIE.com. Or download the mobile app from the Apple or Google Play app stores. In the game of hockey, you need endurance, intelligence, and determination to emerge victorious in overtime. And when it comes to your hockey coverage, you should expect the same. Covering the AHL's Cleveland Monsters, welcome to the Monsters Hockey OT podcast. Here's your host, Deana Weinheimer.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Monsters Hockey OT. I am your host, Deana Weinheimer, and I am so excited to be bringing this podcast to you today. I am the beat writer covering the Cleveland Monsters for the Sin Bin. You can find me and all my fellow writers over at thesinbin.net. And of course, I'm on Twitter. I'm at Sinbin Monsters. And today I have a very special episode for you all. Not only is it my first episode, and of course, we'll be bringing you up to speed on all the Monsters free agent signings, but we'll also kind of be covering the needs of the Monsters as the potential start of the season moves a little bit closer. And to discuss this and a few other very important topics, I have my fellow Monsters beat writer, Elaine Shircliff. Elaine, thank you so much for joining me today. She is starting her 5th season covering the Monsters beat. She is a writer and also runs the social media for the Cannon and SB Nation site. You can follow them over on Twitter at CBJ Cannon. Elaine is a lifelong hockey and sports fan with her very own podcast and website launching later this month, which is focused on finding the beauty in life, sports, music, and art. Elaine, welcome, and thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I got to know Elaine pretty well last season. Again, that was my first one covering the Monsters. Got to know her pretty well up on Press Row. We had some good times up there.
Oh, definitely. I think my favorite time was when we were waiting for the game to start and Harry Potter was on.
Yeah, for those that don't know, I'm not sure how it is in other AHL ranks, but they have little TVs up in the press and scouting area, which you can turn the channel to actually watch the same video feed that's going to the Jumbotron. But there's also cable. And sometimes, while we're waiting, we'll flip through. So, yeah.
I think everyone was watching football I can't even remember what sport it was. And we were like, oh my gosh, it's Harry Potter.
Yeah. Like, I'm watching enough sports. Harry Potter's good.
Right.
I remember taking back or kind of leaning back. Your tea or your coffee was kind of in the frame of my photo. And I'm leaning back. I'm like, hockey, Harry Potter, and tea. This is my dream.
Yes.
Okay, so Harry Potter, I have to ask, what house are you?
So I always thought that I was like a Gryffindor.
Okay.
Because that's what everyone wants to be, right? And then every time I meet like a hardcore Harry Potter fan and I take all the tests, and every time they're like, you're a Slytherin. And I'm like, but I am so kind. I am so nice.
No, I don't
but
picture you.
I mean, I'm not always nice. And that's probably what it is. The people that know me really well are like, oh yeah, no, you're a Slytherin. Not like the They always explain it to me like you're not like Draco or his dad. You're like I can't remember some of they're like you're like some of the older like what Slytherin's intended to be. And
Uh,
I'm like, okay, well I love Harry Potter, but I don't know it that much for the the background of every house.
right,
I just
right.
assumed I was either that or like maybe a Hufflepuff because I am always hungry and and I'm just super quirky and I'm pretty sure that maybe Luna Lovegood and I are like spirit animals.
Right, right.
What about you?
I'm like a borderline Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw, depending on what mood you catch me in.
I
Because
could see that.
I'm either, like you said, the super quirky, kind of out there, happy-go-lucky person, or I'm the super introspective, studious, love to read, just kind of back in the shadows type of person. So it just kind of depends. Do you
Yeah.
get my podcast personality or are you getting my writing personality?
Right? It's kind of like when people ask me questions about sports and I'm like, do you want my fan opinion or do you want my beat reporter opinion?
Exactly, exactly. So speaking of beat reporting, I suppose we better get to the very first topic, and that is the Monsters free agent signings. So to be honest, I was nervous there a little bit with the free agency because we had a few signings after the season paused back in March, April-ish. And then it was basically radio silent for the longest time. And that list of RFAs just sat there and nothing happened. And then all of a sudden, like the proverbial avalanche happened.
Yeah, and it always happens, when I'm in the meeting at work or I'm in the shower. So like I mean, you were up here last weekend and we were talking about it. We're like, they need to sign people. And then you leave, I take a nap, and then I started hearing rumblings that people were going to be signed. And I'm like, oh, we had a whole free weekend.
Right, right.
This is happening. I mean, that's great. Great news. I have things to talk about. I have things to write about. But I just knew it was going to be official when I was in the middle of doing something at my day job. But yeah, it's so great that they had people because for a while there, it was just 3 defenders. And that's including because we didn't know what was going on with the two-way guys. They keep saying that Clendenning and Carlson might be staying up, and that's like what happens to Peak. So that left 3 defenders, and you can't run a team. Even you can't even run the Jackets on having 3 defenders in
No,
your AHL team. So it was
no, you
yeah,
could
definitely
yeah,
yeah.
you could have like Werenski, Jones, and Gavrikov or Savard. Just pick one of the two of them. And if
Mhm.
those are your only ones, you're still in for a world of hurt because they cannot run those kind of minutes all night long.
Right. I mean, it's
And
not
they're some of the
possible.
top guys. I mean, Werenski and Jones, they're some of the top guys in the league. Come on.
Right. Well, and in the AHL too, a lot of defenders are used to help fill in the holes on forwards. When
Mhm.
a lot of I've noticed in the past 4 seasons that a lot of defenders are able to play a wing position on the fourth or third line in the AHL. So I feel like it's even more beneficial to have more defenders knowing that you have a dual player to kind of slide in right there. So,
Instantly, I think of Luke Witkowski that was in the Tampa Bay organization for
yes.
so long. When someone talks about that, that's who I instantly think of every single time.
Yeah, I used to think of him all the time, and then Doyle Summerby
Yeah.
last season, sorry, the season before you came, so 2 seasons ago now, he constantly was playing that forward role, and I would be like, huh, can they keep him there? Because he did really well. He excelled very well at the
Absolutely.
role of forward. So
Absolutely. Well, let's hop in our time machines, go all the way back to April 6th, where the Cleveland Monsters announced the signing of 6'3", 195 pounds, right-handed defenseman Wyatt Newpower out of Hugo, Minnesota. He comes to the Monsters from UConn in the NCAA. I will say off the bat, before we get too far into some of these signings, don't know a whole lot about him.
Yeah, that is true. What I like about Chris Clark and what I also like about Jarmo Kekalainen, and we saw it happen during the draft this year, is they know how to find what works for their team. Even if it means they're going to University of Nebraska, Omaha, where nobody goes and picks a player from, but Chris Clark, or by picking a player who was not drafted, slept through the first round of the draft because he thought he was going to go in the third or fourth round. But it's nice. As a writer, it's tough because there's not a lot of information out there. You have to do a lot of digging, a lot of reaching out to the programs that they played for to really find out how they played and how they fit in with the team. But as a lover of hockey who wants there to be significant changes to make it literally for everyone, picking up guys who played at UConn or University of Nebraska Omaha, I feel like is a great start.
Absolutely. And it looks like, just from the little that I've been able to find on Wyatt Newpower, he's 22, bringing, it looks like, some definite leadership capabilities to this team. He was the captain last season for UConn and also on his high school team. But last season, he matched single season collegiate career highs in goals for 3, 19 assists in 34 games. Of course, that's 22 points. But the big thing that stuck out to me was his plus minus rating of a plus 23.
Right. And in college, the plus minus rating for a defender is pretty solid. In the pros, it's a little bit different. You tend to see it's misleading in the pros because there's often times where a defender can really sneak off and make that line change. And then all of a sudden their plus minus is fine, even though they turn over the puck. But in college, it's a very telling stat of how good a defender is at helping either set up plays or prevent goals from happening. So that was an exciting stat to see.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, oh, okay. Well, considering defense was needed.
And he's a big guy.
He's
a big guy. So that is something that Cleveland needs there, especially on the defense side, because for a while there, they were getting either average height guys or, our forwards are actually some of the forwards are shorter than me, and I'm 5'7", so it's.
I have one in mind. He shall remain nameless. No. I enjoy all the forwards on that team. I digress. Okay. Anyway, so let's move on to the second free agent signing. We'll jump ahead a little bit to April 24th, where Adam Haluka, a forward out of British Columbia. He's a left-handed shot, 6'2", 194. He was actually a fourth-round draft pick of the San Jose Sharks in 2015 and the most experienced of the incoming AHL signees for the Monsters.
Yeah, he's a career AHL player for the most part, and that's what you need when you're signing an AHL-only contract. Someone who knows that when they're that age, when they've been there for a while, knowing that this probably isn't going to be a two-way, and so that means they have a pretty decent head on their shoulders about what kind of playing time they're going to get. Right. We've seen him play a little bit. I don't know a ton about him either, but I feel like he will fit into the team, especially with a coach like Mike Eaves. So,
absolutely, yeah. I mean, he played overseas last season, so I couldn't find a whole lot on him. Sometimes it's really difficult to find scouting reports or even clips of some of the European leagues, unfortunately. But I mean, he looks like he can definitely produce in the AHL. in his last season before going overseas, which was the 18-19 season, he had 50 points in 65 games. 21 of those were goals. I mean, they'll take that. They'll take that anytime. Right. Anytime you can add a little bit more offensive firepower. Plus, he seems, pretty evenly balanced between the goals and assists. So maybe a bit of a playmaker, maybe.
I think it's a word a bit from when I've seen him play. It's definitely, I don't think he's like a prolific playmaker, but for an AHL team, he is definitely a get. And obviously, if you have to deal with contracts and cap space, if you're an NHL team, he's one of the first ones you're going to let walk. So,
yep. All right, now we're going to jump ahead a little bit more to another forward signing, another left-handed shot. On May 4th, Matthew Strothers out of London, Ontario, who's coming straight out of the Ontario Hockey League. Last season, 59 points, 62 games between the North Bay Battalion and the Owen Sound Attack. He also has 5 AHL appearances with Laval under his belt at age 20.
Yeah.
Another one we don't know too much about, unfortunately. I mean, some of these guys are just kind of came out of left field, and even though they've been there a little bit, and and we kind of discussed pre-show, we found plenty of articles talking about, their community involvement, their personalities. Yeah. It's hard to get a good read on their play style and exactly where they're going to fit in.
Right, and a lot of these guys too, also family people. They are very close with their families. And the Monsters, family is super important. I mean, especially if you ask Coach Eves about it, if you talk to Nathan Gerby, Brett Gallant is the biggest family guy on that team. His son's running through the halls all the time. He's a favorite of all the players. You want someone or multiple people on the team who understand the value of family and having them around, because that could be a source of contention in the locker room if you don't understand that and don't understand why people have their families at every games and why the kids are at every practice. So these guys that they signed back in the spring and early summer, it appears from the articles that we've seen that they also understand that.
And to be honest, if I can just kind of sidestep just a little bit, that's one thing I really enjoyed about covering the Monsters, was seeing all that down in basically in the areas that the fans don't get to see. Some of the interactions between some of the different players and their teammates' children, it was so neat to watch, and it really gives you a whole new appreciation and understanding as to who the team, like what the team spirit is and who everyone is whenever they're not skating on the ice and not plowing guys over.
Right. It's nice to see that it's almost as if the Monsters are one big family. Just a huge family that just happens to all play hockey together.
I would agree with that. So moving forward a little to a more recent signing, we're up to September now. Like I said, the summer was quiet. I think we were both getting a little anxious, ready for some signings. But they signed, just for a change of pace, a right-handed forward in Zach Jordan out of Illinois, who was the Nebraska at Omaha signing from the NCAA. He had a 12, 4, and 16 stat line while wearing the assistant captain's A last season, which was his senior season at Nebraska Omaha.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited to see how this one turns out, because if Chris Clark, he dug deep for that one. And if Chris Clark is digging deep, there's something truly special about this player. And I think right now, I think I saw on Twitter that Zach is working for, I think, the AAA St. Louis Blues, or it's TPH Blues. I can't remember, but it's a youth hockey team, and if that's what he's doing, that he will bring another aspect of the game, kind of like what Dylan Simpson brings, um, or even what Brad Thiessen brings, that kind of value in learning the game, even if you don't get a lot of playing time. So it'll be interesting to see what he brings to the table.
Yeah, and it's always fascinating when you can get someone that, like you said, he's working with another team, so he's getting kind of that coach's mindset kind of instilled early. And it's always fascinating to watch people like that who can kind of switch between the two, because their way of thinking is completely different. So it'll be interesting to watch how Mike Eves works with him on that, and just to kind of watch his whole career develop.
Right.
So now let's get to some names that Monsters fans will start to recognize. October 4th, we have the first of our RFAs with the Columbus Blue Jackets re-signing in Cole Sherwood, 1 year, 2-way contracts.
It's nice to have Cole Sherwood back. I was afraid that he would either walk or they wouldn't keep him, just because he hasn't produced at the level that they did want him to. I think about 2 seasons ago, they sent him down to the ECHL to both toughen him up and work on some of his fundamentals. He took it to heart, and he definitely came back a different player and continues to grow, but I'm unsure it's at the speed that they want him to grow. It's nice to see that they took the time to say, you know what, 1 more year. We'll see what 1 more year does, because we know it's not going to be a full season. So if he can make something happen and make an impact in a half a season or a quarter a season, whatever happens for the Jackets and the AHL, I think we'll see more of him, or we will see him end up on another team.
Now, was it just me, or was he playing with a little bit more physicality last season? I wasn't used to seeing that.
He was playing with more honed physicality.
Okay.
Before, it would be, I don't want to say erratic, that's not the right word. It just wasn't as locked in. It was a little bit more like snap judgment. Like he would snap and be like, time to get aggressive. Now he's going in there and he's like, I'm going to be on the flanks of this face off. This guy's going to try and touch the puck. Good luck. Like that's where he's at now. So he realizes that he has it in him, and he needs to not unleash the beast often, but slowly, it needs to slowly come out in a way that's beneficial for the team. And so because of that, he does it more consistently, and it's a little bit more noticeable than being like, wow, Cole has been quiet all season, and then all of a sudden being like, oh no, he is
right,
very aggressive right now. So it's more consistent, and definitely annoys a lot of people, which is what the Monsters needed, was someone who annoyed people that wasn't Brett Gallant, because everyone expected it to be Brett.
Yeah. How could you not expect it to be him? I mean, if you are in the AHL and you don't have that guy's number memorized, and you don't notice it whenever you're on the ice, that's completely on you. I mean, right. You should know, and you need to have a talk with your coach, because they should have made you aware of that.
Right. Well, and the thing about Brett Gallant too is a lot of people misunderstand him and think he goes into games looking for a fight, and really he is a true enforcer. And when I say that, I don't mean it in the Goon way, like the movie The Goon.
Yeah.
I mean it in, when he's coming for you, it means that you're done. You're done doing what you're doing. You're done getting in the goalie's crease. You're done snowing the goalie. You're done taking an extra whack at a player. You're done with the cross checks. Like, when Brett's coming for you, it's because it's time to stop. And that, that's what makes him so valuable to every team, because he knows when and when not to go at it. So
that's the. Sorry, go ahead.
That's what Cole's kind of learning to do now too. So it's nice to see that 2 players on the team are doing that.
Yeah, and that was actually the point I was about to make about Gallant was I've been watching the Monsters for a while, of course, not in the beat writer role. And I've noticed, like, as each season goes on, he's getting more, I shouldn't say more selective, but more wise as to the appropriate timings of things for the most impact. It's like, okay, he understands the flow of the game. Like, okay, there's going to be times where it gets a little chippy, but you just need to let it ride because you can see the other team getting frustrated. And I can see times where he skates it onto the ice, he notices it, and then he backs off a little bit. And then there's the times where he's, you can tell that he knows that it's getting out of hand, and he just, like you said, it's over at that point.
And I think part of that too is the longer he's with the Monsters, the less players on other teams come for anyone on the ice when he's playing. You can see a difference in when he's benched for when he's a healthy scratch. You can see the difference in how a team will play. They'll be extra aggressive. They'll try to take all the liberties that they want. And then the next night, that same team sees that he's in the lineup, and most of them are like, well, you know what? I think tonight we're going to be chill. We're going to be good. So he's definitely made a name for himself as someone who can also play the game well, because he is a phenomenal fourth or third liner. And people think that being a phenomenal fourth liner is like a bad thing, but they need those people that are solid on the fourth line, and he's great at it. And he is really good at faceoffs, whether he's on the flank or taking the faceoff. So him being on the third or fourth line has helped the Jackets win games multiple times. And I'm sure that also annoys people on the other team because they look at him like he's just a goon, which he's not.
That's a nice little weapon to have in your pocket if you're Mike Eves, for sure.
Right.
All right, so let's switch over to goaltender on October 8th. Goalie Matisse Kivlenix, 2-year, 2-way, another contract signed by the Columbus Blue Jackets. I personally was happy to finally see that deal happen.
Yeah, to be honest, I thought they were going to sign and flip him to a team that needs a young, solid goaltender, right? Or I was waiting for them to send Jonas Korpisalo to a team that needs a veteran goaltender, and then Matisse would be up in the NHL. And I'm not 100% sure that he's ready for that as much as doing a tandem down in Columbus.
Yeah. I kind of had that in the back of my mind too, but I think the uncertainty of next season plus the absolutely insane depth of the UFA goalies for the NHL this past free agency signing period, that had to put a wrench into something, I would think.
Right. And the fact that there's still some of those goalies left, I'm scratching my head about that, but I have never seen the Jackets organization so lush with good goaltending. So they have Elvis and Jonas Korpisalo, and then they have Matisse and Vilainen, and then they have Daniel. Is that how you say it? Daniel Tarasov?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, Daniel Tarasov overseas, and if they need him, I think he can come over. So it's 5 good goaltenders, not decent goaltenders, 5 good, solid goaltenders. What organization has that? I don't think any of them.
Right. And that got put on full display for the Jackets last season when Korpisalo unfortunately went down in that heavily publicized game against Chicago. I think a lot of people know about that. At least they know about head coach John Tortorella's comments afterwards.
Right. It was a very expensive post-game presser.
Yes, one of the most expensive. Well, he kind of tied it later in the season, I think. But anyway, watching him go up and he got his first win, I think, in New York against the Rangers, I think. But just watching him play, it was so exciting just to see, okay, he was down here. And just not that long ago, there was a lot of question marks around both Keith Lennox and Vevalainen.
Yeah.
Just to see them, again, stepping up. It's just a lot of fun.
Right. And I think a lot of that has to do with Brad Thiessen. He definitely worked with them on not just, the goalie tandem thing, but also confidence and knowing that they're not the same goaltender and the defense does have to play differently with each one, but that's how it should be unless you have two of the same goaltenders, but that's super rare. And I don't even know if you would really want the same style of goaltender in net all the time.
Right.
So 2 years ago, 3 seasons ago, even I would be concerned about Matisse Kivlenieks. There was a time when he was playing in the ECHL. Then they brought him up and he did well. And then his confidence got shaky. And then, it just is nice to see the level of confidence and respect that all of these goaltenders have for each other. They want nothing more than to see each other succeed. And goaltender position is super cutthroat. And yeah, you can be really friendly with the person that is backing you up or you're in the tandem with, but in the back of your mind, you're like, I'm gunning for their job. And a lot of times you see that goaltender being like, oh yes, I'm very happy for them. But in the Jackets case, you have guys like Elvis Merzlikins sending pictures of water bottles to Jonas Corposalo, like, I'm coming for you. It's just a different dynamic that you don't typically see on a team.
It's definitely that team before the individual mentality all the way through. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one. This is a player signed October 9th, defenseman Gavin Beiruther. I'm sorry if I messed that up. Some of these names are a little difficult. Signed by the Blue Jackets, 1-year, 2-way contract. This is a player that I've seen a few people say could potentially contend for a spot up in Columbus. But to me, I think this is going to be more of a depth signing. I don't see how he's going to jump over, like you said, the likes of Carlson or Glendening or Harrington or Kukin or any of those guys. But yeah, I think this is definitely a depth move by Columbus.
100% a depth move. There's no question in my mind that this is a depth move. Even when people talk to Jarmo about the defense as it is, he doesn't mention him. It is a depth move. He is good. He's very solid. He is a first pairing defender in the AHL. He is very consistent. He is not quite there for the NHL yet. I wish it was because he has been around for a little bit. He has paid his dues, but he's not there yet. In fact, here's a fun fact about him. He scored his first professional goal through Anton Forsberg's 5-hole when he played against the Monsters in March of 2017. So,
fun fact. Today I learned.
Yes. I actually remember that too because Anton Forsberg, poor guy, in the 2016-17 season, there were a lot of firsts against him, like a lot of first goals or first assists. So I remembered a lot about that season when people scored, unfortunately for Anton Forsberg.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would be awesome if for the Monsters, not for the organization, but for the Monsters, if Clendening came to the Monsters, because he and Clendening would be very good together on that first pairing. But it looks like Clendening will probably be up top. But
I will miss Clendening's shot from the
point, the
yes,
right point, not just any point, the right point.
Every time I saw him line up for that, especially on the power play, he would get there sometimes, and I just sit there and I just kind of lean back. that's going to go in. Oh, there it goes.
Right?
And then I'd always start out my tweets. Monsters fans, tell me if you've heard this one before. Stop me if you've heard this one before. And people reply back, yeah, and we love it. Like, there you go. That's his move.
Right. I often wonder if they have a play called the Clendo or the Clendening, where all it is that's all he does is line it up from the point and fires it off. And someone like Calvin Turkoff sits in the crease or goes behind in case it bounces off the boards. Then there is someone that actually does sit behind the net a little bit in case it does, and then takes it in for the goal if it doesn't hit it. I'm almost positive they have that play.
We need to write that down and ask.
Right. Yeah.
If not, make it a play.
Right.
So speaking of some returning familiar faces, on October 12th, we had a group of 3 signings. We had, well, basically one in each major position. We had forward Justin Scott, defenseman Dylan Simpson, and Rickwell Brad, goaltender Brad Thiessen returning for another season. Now, I was happy to see, I wasn't sure if Thiessen was going to come back.
Me either.
Just because he is that third depth goaltender. For those that may not know, a lot of the season before the injury up in Columbus and, they had the goalie shuffle a little bit, he served more in a goalie coach role and also did some broadcast type work. So he didn't even really see ice time. So I was a little shocked, but happy to know that he's back there.
Right. It's a lot of leadership that they brought back for sure. Thiessen, I was shocked that they brought him back, pleasantly shocked, because he does bring a wonderful dynamic to the team, and he's a gem to have in media scrums. That's always something to look forward to. he like you said, though, he's the third goaltender, and he does such a great job with the coaching and the color commentating that it's almost a shame that they won't have it full time that way. But anything that can happen will happen with the Monsters and the Jackets. So it's probably best to err on the side of caution and have a stand-up guy who plays well still, who is over 30, plays well, still has good knees, even though he had hurt, I think he hurt his knee or his groin before, but it's still in top-notch shape now. So good for the Monsters, right?
Smart move. Now, which one were you excited about? Was it Simpson that you were excited about coming back?
Both Simpson and Justin Scott. Because since I've started, well, first of all, in reference to Justin Scott, he has been there as long as I have been there. And so
that makes sense.
Right. It's nice to see a player stay on an AHL team for that long, and you kind of get to know them and really get to know what they bring to the team. And watching him from his first season to last season, he just grew up so much. He is a smart player. The problem is he can't always do it. That's not the word. What is that word? He can't always do what is being asked of him. He doesn't have the mechanics for it all the time. But he can explain it to other people. He can get them to understand what to do, even if he can't so much show them. He's really good at putting it into terms that other players will understand. So Justin Scott coming back is great, and fans will love it. He's a fan favorite.
Right.
And last year he really grew up because all leadership either was injured or called up top, except for Dylan Simpson. He was the constant from the original leadership crew. And Justin stepped in. I mean, Coach Eves, if you ask Coach Mike Eves about it, he will say nothing but good things about the way Justin Scott stepped in as a leader and was able to translate the message from the coaches into the locker room and get the guys to understand. And that's what any team wants and needs. That a guy is going to step up when you need him to off the ice as well as on the ice. So welcome back, Justin.
Very warm welcome back to all three, for sure. Right. That was a good day for the Monsters.
It really was. Even with Dylan Simpson too. He could definitely play first pairing for sure. But in the AHL, you really want your 2As to try and play in the first pairing. The ones that you know are going to get called up. You kind of want them in that first pairing. But Dylan is so good with the youth that need molding. He did so many good things for Andrew Peak, but on the flip side, he learned from Andrew. And he, a guy in his late 20s doesn't have to learn from another player, but he chose to, and it took his game to the next level. He chose to learn from Anton Carlson, took his game to the next level. I mean, Dylan Simpson is always growing, always learning, and that's great for a young guy to see, but also an older veteran who has a chip on their shoulder about being in the AHL for a little bit. It's good for them to see that it doesn't matter how long you've been around, you can always grow. That's what Dylan Simpson brings to the team. And scoring. A lot of scoring.
Yes. I'm pulling up his stats real quick. What did he have last season? Of course.
I know Clendenning was the top point scorer for defense.
Yeah. Okay, so Simpson, 9 goals, 14 assists, 23 points.
Yeah.
For a defenseman?
That's really good.
I'll take it. For sure. All right, so let's move on. This was a move that I wasn't quite expecting, but I was happy to hear it. October 14th, forward Tyler Sakura, coming from AHL's Rockford Ice Hogs, is now in contract. Last season, he had 14 goals, 20 assists, 34 points with a +10 in 63 appearances. I always liked watching him and his brother when Rockford played the Monsters. That's the only time I actually got to see them, either watching them on AHL TV or in the arena, but that was a good signing.
Yes, it was a very good signing. He also was the top point scorer for the Ice Hogs last season, his brother being the second point scorer. So this season, they got to see what it was like for Tyler to play without his brother, because his brother kept going up to the Hawks to play. Mm-hmm. So they were separated, and he showed that he is valuable without his brother, which is very important, because I'm pretty sure he was only on an AHL contract with the Ice Hogs. So it's very important at that stage to be able to separate yourself from your sibling so that you can make a name for yourself as well, because not every team is going to sign brothers. The Ice Hogs and the Chicago Wolves, they will sign brothers all day. They will do it. Not every team does that.
Did they ever have the Broadhurst brothers together over there? I thought so.
Yes. But Tyler brings a lot to the table. I mean, he's not your prolific goal scorer, but he's a prolific point scorer for a reason. Just the way he powers through the neutral zone to keep a play going and then doesn't stop until he gets to the net it's very beautiful. As a fan of fundamentals in hockey, watching him play is very beautiful sometimes, because he truly understands what it takes to keep a play going and be the finisher. And if he can't be the finisher, he knows who can be the finisher. It's very valuable to have on a team.
For sure. Now we're going up to, as the time we're recording this, it's yesterday. By the time this goes out, it'll be 2 days ago. But we have defenseman Thomas Shemtisch. I know I'm messing that up. I wrote the pronunciation guide down and I still can't get it. My most sincere apologies to Thomas. But he is a former 2015 third round 88th overall pick of the Florida Panthers, played in Springfield for the Thunderbirds last season. Another right shooting defenseman, big body, 6'4", 201.
Yeah.
That theme of adding size on defense is sticking around here, it looks like.
Yes, it is. This is where I wish the AHL played more teams during the season, because I reached out to people that there aren't many people that cover the Thunderbirds. I've reached out to even Florida writers, Panther writers. They didn't know a ton about him, but it seemed like he provided a lot to the team. I even reached out a little bit to the fans, but I wish that I personally had seen more. And yes, I have AHL TV, so I could watch some of those games, but we never play them. The Monsters never play them. So what I typically do is I watch our games. I watch the Jackets games. And then I watch the 2 games of the opponent leading up to the Monsters games. So there's literally no way that I could have the time to just turn on the Springfield Falcons and see exactly how they're doing, because I like to sleep.
You mean you don't want to give up your entire life to watch hockey, to scout? Come on.
Right.
And write on top of it? I mean,
Right.
come on.
And
Elaine.
have a day job? Yeah, totally.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
No, so I'm curious to see what he brings to the team. It's probably nothing bad, so that's good.
If they went out and signed him, I'm sure there's a very good reason that he was picked over some of the other available guys. That he's definitely going on my notes as one of the ones to watch for sure.
Yeah.
Now, finally,
sorry,
go ahead.
No, sorry. He's one of those guys I'll probably, before the season starts, since we have a bit of time, I'll probably go back through AHL TV, pull up what games he played in the most, and watch those games, because I do need to know how he's going to play.
Yeah.
And we don't know what the season's going to look like. We don't know if there'll be training camp for the Monsters in a way that we will be able to be there and watch him play. So definitely a different way of doing things this season. So we'll have to touch base on that later.
Yeah, it's very fluid. It's a fluid situation.
Yes, it's very fluid.
So here was one that we finally are up to, our last free agent signing. Now, this is a signing that I had heard rumblings about that was going to happen. And as I was at my day job today, I was checking my phone a little more often than I probably should have, trying to see if the news was made official so we could talk about this tonight, because I know you are particularly high on this player. Forward Carson Meyer out of The Ohio State University signs an AHL contract for this coming season. Now, he was a Blue Jackets 6th-round pick back in 2017, and got 31 points in 35 appearances for Ohio State. I mean, I enjoy watching him. I'm very happy he's staying within his hometown, or maybe not hometown, but home state team. So, and I know you've been following him for quite a while.
Yes. So from October 2013 until May of 2015, I was an intern for the AAA Blue Jackets down in Columbus. And I got to watch guys like Cole Sherwood and Carson Meyer grow up a little bit and play. It's been so amazing for me to be able to be in a post-game presser with someone that like Cole, who you saw when they were 16 and you were like, they could maybe make it, and then they make it. And same thing with Carson. It's very nice to see that the things that I saw in them when they were 16, 17, 18 are things that are still there today. You know, there are times when players they'll peak when they're 16. They'll peak when they're 14, and you think they're going to be the next best thing. These guys did not peak. And honestly, if Carson hadn't have gotten sick a few seasons ago, I think he would have been even better. You know, he doesn't just have the drive, he also has the skill to make it work. He is I'm excited to see how he and Cole play together again. I wonder, I don't know if it'll be like missing a beat or if it's like they never stop playing together. It'll be very interesting, but I think it'll help with the camaraderie of the team as well, because he already knows everyone. Well, maybe not the new guys that, but he already knows a big group of them, and I'm impressed with the way he has developed on the power play. He is very, very beneficial on the power play. He knows how to finish the power play. He knows how to start the power play. He knows how to score, set up the goals, and he has just the right amount of aggressiveness. So he can muscle through that traffic, no big deal. He has definitely grown into the type of player that you want on your team. Yeah, I can't say enough about him. I know that he's not NHL ready. I know people wanted him to be NHL ready and were very disappointed that he didn't get to play in the NHL. And I think part of that's because he is a hometown boy, and because and that's a great story, and you want that to happen, right? And I want that to happen for him. I want that to happen for any player that grew up in a town loving a team and gets drafted by them. I want them to get that dream, because that's really the ultimate dream, right? Like,
right.
So this is a good thing for Carson, for sure, I think, being able to be on.
Yeah, I mean, and it proves that the dream's still there. He gets to play in professional hockey in his home state, still within the organization. Yes, it's an AHL only deal, but if you break out, the Jackets will probably make room for you. We saw that with Stefan Matteau last season. He elevated his game, and he was, I was in awe most of the time watching him play. And then, then he gets named, he gets the A on his jersey. You can tell he was feeling really good about himself. And the next thing you know, two-way contract gets signed, he goes up with the Jackets and contributed. I mean, you noticed him from the first time he hit the ice for Columbus. It was, the dream is not dead. Carson can still do it.
Right. There is one thing that I kind of wanted to also say, because I fielded this question a lot today.
Sure, go right on ahead.
Is how can I be unbiased covering Carson Meyer when I worked for the same program that he came from? My response was the same way that I was unbiased while Trent Vogelhuber was playing, and while he's behind the bench, and the same way I was unbiased while Cole Sherwood is still playing. But really what it comes down to is this: I am a beat reporter, and I have to take those, the fact that any beat reporter has to make that decision between being a fan and not being a fan, and you have to turn it off. The moment I walk through those doors, I have to turn it off. I turn it off. And honestly, sometimes I'm a little bit harder on them because I know what they've been and I know what they can achieve. So sometimes I will be I'm not going to drag them, obviously.
Right.
But sometimes I'm a little bit harder because I know the greatness that's in there, personally. But another thing is this: Ed Ginger, the program director of the AAA Jackets, is an amazing man who took a chance on me without me having any sort of college degree, having a minimum college education. He ran with me. And if I don't go in there and be the best beat reporter I can be, it does not make him look the best. And I want nothing more than to have Ed Ginger look at me and what I've done and say how proud he is, because I want him to be able to talk about his program in a positive light. I want people to look at the AAA Blue Jackets and be like, wow, not only do great players come from there, not only do great coaches come from there, but great writers and great beat reporters, great people in general come out of that program. And I don't want anyone to ever have a doubt in their mind that Ed Ginger doesn't know greatness when he sees it. And so when I walk into that building, I look at my phone, I see the picture of the AAA Blue Jackets when they won the Quebec City tournament back in 2014 to remind myself, this is it. This is the big show for you. Look at where you were, look at where you are now, and look what you're helping do for the program from a non-playing aspect. So yeah, I put a little bit of pressure on myself, but that's how I'm able to separate the two, because I love the sport and I love that program so much more.
I won't lie, I got goosebumps.
I started crying.
I started getting emotional. It's like, oh my gosh. Well, hold that thought, because that's going to seg into a topic 2 down on my list. But rapid fire question. What's the biggest need for the Monsters going into next season?
Defense. 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 All the defense.
Okay. Yep. In my notes, I have big letters. Defense, defense, defense. Underneath, I think special teams, but the pieces might be there.
Yes.
Because some of the signings, whenever I looked into a little bit, they look to be special teams, especially power play contributors. So I kind of put a little question mark after that, but yeah, defense, defense, defense.
Yes. Yeah, I think special teams is going to be wild this year in a good way. Like, I don't think I've ever covered a team and saw what they have coming to the table and been like, the special teams are good. This is going to be, I think that Steve McCarthy and Trent Vogelhuber are going to have a field day with these guys. It's going to be, I think it's going to be fun. And the fact that they all want to learn, it seems like all of these guys want to continue learning. And so the best people to learn from, in my opinion, are the people behind the bench at the Monsters, because they always want to teach you. That's all they want to do. They want to teach you. They want to develop you. They want you to be good. And all these players are going to eat that up. And as a beat reporter, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun season to write about, for sure.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, one of the things that stuck most in my head, and we've talked about this before, where in one of the very first media scrums, post-game scrums that I was a part of, head coach Mike East was talking about development, not only as players, but as people. And he comes from a long coaching background in like collegiate level. You know, then he moves. Yeah. Yes. And then he moves back to the AHL. For the most part, same age range. So that's always just stuck with me whenever I see the leadership skills develop over the course of the season, and just how they handle themselves, how they present themselves, whether it's in warm-ups, during the game, if I happen to be walking down to the media room and they're stretching, warming up, beforehand. It was cool to see the evolution just from that standpoint of development on both sides, player and person.
Yes.
So I'm excited to watch that. So let's go into a topic that has been discussed quite a bit.
So much.
over the summer. That might be a grave understatement. It was actually brought back to light here in the last couple of days. The role of women, not only in sports, but especially sports journalism. Obviously, if you're watching the YouTube portion of this, you can tell we are both female. and we both work in sports journalism. So if you don't mind, I'm actually going to kind of lead off on this, and then I'll throw it over to you just to kind of talk about our experiences and our background. Actually, my journalism background started in a small town radio station in Coshocton, Ohio. It's about 90 minutes east of Columbus on WTNS 99.3, the spirit of Coshocton, where I was a news reporter and a DJ. And I mean, I was still in high school when I got that job. I had worked for years in public speaking with the local 4-H program. And I mean, it was kind of I applied and I had references and they brought me in. It was fine. And then I got away from, from sports and from journalism for a while. I had some personal things that I had to deal with. And then I tried getting back into it. And that's when I saw how insanely difficult it is for a woman to succeed. I mean, I had written for some other sites on the NHL level, and I'll never forget one time. Now, I live right outside of Columbus, Ohio. Nationwide Arena is about a 20-minute drive from my house. I get brought on by a website, and I was told, I was obviously, okay, I'm going to cover a team. I should be able to apply for credentials, because it is so hard to give great coverage and to be a beat reporter for a team when you cannot talk to anybody in the organization. You can't talk to the coaches, the players, the front office staff. I mean, you're just kind of living in a vacuum, and all you can rely on are the other reporters. So you're basically taking their work. So I was really excited. I thought, okay, this is going to be my big break. I didn't even get to talk to the person that did the credentials, but the person said, "I'm sorry, but we do not want women representing us in the locker room." And I was shocked, absolutely shocked. Like, okay, I'm a good enough writer that you hired me. You're having me write all these feature stories for you, but I'm not good enough to walk into the locker room. I'm not professional enough whenever you check my references just because I'm female. Yeah. So fast forward, I had a lot of other roadblocks where I would apply. I would know just from college or different groups or things that I'm with, male writers. We would apply to the same jobs. They would get interviews, callbacks. I would get radio silence until finally I landed where I am now, the Sin Bin, who I think is one of the premier sites for inclusion in giving females, basically anybody. If you have the talent, if you have the drive, if you have the tenacity to do it, they will accept you and treat you the same way that they treat everybody else. So, needless to say, I'm very happy to be here. So, Elaine, talk about your experiences a little bit, and then we can talk about the monsters as a whole.
Great.
Yes.
So I don't hate saying this, but I feel I don't often enter this discussion because of what my experience is. Men in this sport have been nothing but wonderful to me. They have opened up so many doors. They have lifted me up. I mean, I can't tell you how many of the scouts, because I don't think maybe a few times I've seen a female scout at the Monsters games, but for the most part, they're all men. I can't tell you how many times I've said, "Hey, can you kind of explain to me your note-taking process?" Or tell me what you see about this guy on the ice. And they tell me and they teach me, and they don't do it in a condescending manner. They do it in a way that's just very uplifting and empowering. I look at Jeff Schledel, who is the beat reporter for the Monsters since they have existed. he from day one offering me advice, telling me, telling me you don't have to just stick with hockey. You're good enough to write for the about the Browns. You're good enough to write about the Indians. And it just floored me because I hear these things, and honestly in my life most of the time the negative stuff I've heard has come from women. When I was in the second grade, I the substitute teacher came in and asked us all what we wanted to be when we grew up. And I, being the ever so ambitious person I was, said I wanted to be a singer and an actress and a sports journalist. And she laughed and said, "There's no way you will ever be a sports journalist."
Wow.
Because she didn't think that that was possible for a woman. And I could see that when I look back on it. I grew up right outside of Chicago during the Michael Jordan and the Bulls heyday.
Mm-hmm.
And guys like Bob Green ran the show. It was a lot of men. And when I look back on it, I don't remember any women being out there, even on television. Mm-hmm. But it never struck me that it was because, I'm probably very naive. It didn't struck me until recently, and I say recently as in this summer, that some of my opportunities that I didn't get were because I was a woman. Because I would hear things, people discuss things more openly on Twitter and social media. And I was like, oh, that guy didn't want me writing. He said I wasn't a good enough writer, but this guy is just as good as me and got it. And I always just assumed, well, maybe I do need to bring another extra level. I just kept trying to level up. Mm-hmm. And everyone should always try to level up. I think everyone does. I'm not saying that no one's trying to level up, but I was like, oh, well, maybe it's because I'm a woman. Oh my goodness. Like, I never thought of it that way. And because I never experienced that, but I never doubted women when they said things, because there are times mm-hmm. you see things. I experienced one thing when I worked for another publication where one guy would just delete my articles because I was a woman instead of putting them. And another person there just totally went to town on him, just like drug him. And their followers would come at me in the comments and be like, "What do you know, little girl?" First of all, I am 27. That's how old I was at the time. I'm not a little girl. Secondly, I know a lot. I've been following the sport since I was out of the womb, because my mom is a diehard Wings fan and my grandma was a diehard Wings fan.
There you go.
That's where I learned it from, was women. And I was always surrounded by women, and somehow I always end up surrounded by women. I've never truly experienced what it's like to be around a bunch of dudes all the time in the sport. And maybe it's just because I just start gravitating towards it. Mm-hmm. I'm super friendly, as you know. Like,
right.
I say hi to everyone. I walk up to them, try to get to know them.
Key point, but me coming in first time, having any sort of credentials since my radio days, and they just welcomed me with open arms. And people like you and some of the other beat writers, the security staff, the communication staff, everybody treated me like I had been there for years. Yes, they knew I was the new kid, in town, but they were all so kind and so welcoming. And that just seems to be an organizational mindset. But what I really liked, and it fits in perfectly with this, is so many of those front-facing roles, like with the media and the social media, are all women.
Yes.
And they work so hard, and they are so good at what they do.
Yes. I've never seen anyone in my life work as hard as Kelsey worked during the playoffs last season. It's not. The seasons are messing me up.
Yeah. And for those that don't know, Kelsey, she's the social media person for the Monsters.
She's a social media person for the Monsters. And when they were in the playoffs playing against Syracuse, I remember sitting next to her, finishing up my article, and she is Instagramming, tweeting, Snapchatting, putting out, the emails. She is doing everything on her own. And also, I have to say, she's a queen. Like she wears these heels that are so
I
tall,
couldn't do it.
and she does it with such grace and such speed. I am so in awe of what she brings to the table. She's incredibly kind. And just if you watch her during the games in general, though, there was one game I made it a point. I was like, I am going to watch Kelsey. I want to see, as a woman, what it's like to watch another woman work. And she was making GIFs. She was tweeting, Facebook, everything. I've never seen one person put so much work and it be consistently great. I'm talking like 120% great.
Mm-hmm.
She is someone that everyone in sports should look up to. Men, women, children, everything. Kelsey and Nicole, who
Yes.
we deal with on a daily basis as well.
Yes, Nicole is the communications coordinator, I believe her role is. She's the one that helps us out with everything, everything Cleveland Monsters. But yeah, I mean, and back to Kelsey, not only is she just a social media genius,
Yes.
but if you listen to any of the tapes or any of the videos, I'm showing my age there, tapes. Any of the videos of the post-game presser. I mean, if you're not hearing Elaine's voice, Jeff's voice, my voice, that's Kelsey. And some of the questions she asks are just, I mean, I just stand there and I look at her like, okay. I mean, she sometimes sees things that I just like I've missed, and I couldn't thank the Monsters enough for giving people that are good at, I mean, have knowledge of the sport and are good at their jobs like that,
and are kind,
for keeping them there,
and are super kind. Nicole is one of the kindest souls I have ever met in this sport. And I've met a lot of kind people, but she is just so genuine. She wants to know how your family's doing. She wants to know how you're doing. She wants to make sure you're comfortable at the game. Yeah. She tries to move as many mountains as she can, but she's also very honest. If she can't do it, she can't do it. And I'm always like, okay, like I know that if you could, you would. I know you're not sweet talking me. You literally can't do it, and I accept that because she will do everything in her power to do whatever we need. And she's also really good at what she does too. I'm just, every single woman that's in there, I gotta say, like, I gotta give a big shout out to Barb. I don't know, you know what Barb is? The lady at the security when you check in.
Oh yeah, I didn't know her name, but I know exactly who you're talking about. I met so many new people last year that really, other than the communications people, the only one I really remember is Tim. He's the security guard that sits down right outside of the Monsters locker room. That's because like I had time to chat with him almost every single time, and there were so many times that he was behind me in the security line to get into the building. So I got to talk to him a lot. But yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Barb
is great. She's funny. She doesn't take anyone's BS.
Oh no.
She's like, I don't care if you're a Cavs writer. This is a Monsters game. And I bet she would say the same thing to me if I rolled up to a Cavs game trying to get into it. There are rules and she follows them, and she loves everyone that comes through there. All of the security guards, all of the staff, like you said, they're just so wonderful. And it's definitely a Cavs organizational thing. And I can't speak enough about that. Even the men. Let's talk about the men for a little bit too, because Tony Brown and Ben Adams have often they come to me and they tell me things I need to work on. And I appreciate it so much because it's coming from a place of, we want you to be better. We know that you're good, and we know that you can be better.
It's a very respectful dialogue.
Yes. And I don't know if a lot of people get that. I don't know how it is at other places, but the fact that they put so much time and effort into the people that they don't manage, that they don't get paid to talk to. They do it out of the kindness of their hearts, out of, seeing that we succeed. Because in honesty, when we succeed, they also succeed because we're writing good quality articles about the team and we are asking the right questions and we're not being long-winded in post game. We're not asking questions that would make, coach mad or make a player mad. Some of the reasons why I ask the questions I do is because of Tony Brown. Because I watched what he did and he is always open to talking to me about it. I can't, like I said, I can't say enough about this organization. I am so blessed to be a part of it. And that's the other thing, like the security guards and the staff, on Sundays when we come in, the amount of them that are like, how was mass? Let's talk about what you learned. I'll tell you what I learned at my church service. And I am always hungry for that. And the fact that I get that on a Sunday when I'm rushing because I'm trying to fit mass into a game before a game on like little to no sleep because there was also a game the night before. Like it's a great organization. I'm sorry, I could go on for hours.
Oh, I know, and I could too. But it's great that I honestly feel very humbled and blessed that my first real down in the trenches type experience is with the Monsters, because I had a lot of anxiety, trepidation about this just from my background going into, just trying to break into sports journalism. And I had heard some of the horror stories from women not feeling safe and things like that. And this is the complete opposite. So girls, women, if you're listening, if you want to be into sports journalism, there are places to go that are safe and welcoming and value your opinion. Yeah. Obviously, we're two examples of it right here. And I think with people like Nicole and Ben and Tony and Kelsey and things like that, like really leading the charge, and from a sports organization standpoint, that's obviously trickled down, because never at any time did I ever feel any amount of disrespect or anything like that from a player or a coach because of the fact that I'm female. I always felt they answered our questions with the same amount of thought and care that they did, say, Jeff or any of the other male beat reporters that might be there on a given night.
Right. And I will say this, it's cool to me too. I experienced it with Coach John Madden and then again with Mike Eves. And when, Aaron Portzline or Mark came down, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. When Mark came down from Mark Scheig.
Yeah, he's with the hockey writers.
Yes. When he came down, I always expect that they're automatically going to give all of their attention to anyone that covered Blue Jackets. Even when Jeff Svoboda came down. Both of those coaches gave it out evenly. They were like, this is post-game presser, and this is how we do it. And no one got special attention. And I was so grateful for that, because yes, they're all total pros. I wouldn't have been mad if they got that first question or second question, but I can't tell you how many times John Madden would look directly at me before a post-game presser. And I'd be like, oh, first question, I'm ready. It's just that level of respect that both coaches have for anyone that enters their line of vision, and I feel like it's like that up in Columbus too. Mm-hmm. So, well, for the most part, yes.
Well, I can't speak about Coach Madden because obviously I wasn't there while he was with the organization, but I can't speak enough the praises for Mike Eves. There were times where, and of course fans don't see this, but there's an area where we can grab some tea or coffee or water before the games. And there's been times where I've been down there and, I'm making my tea, getting, honey and all that stuff in there. And he's down there getting something, and he'll stop by and you've been down there too, and he'll
Yeah.
talk to us just one-on-one. How's it going? He'll ask me, how is the drive from Columbus? How's the family? And it's so genuine. It doesn't seem forced or fake at all. Like, he genuinely cares. I mean, there's been times where I'm getting ready to hit the road to go back to Columbus and it's snowing outside. He'll stop and he'll say, please drive safely. We'll see you next time. And it's just a really, really cool. I keep saying cool. That's my buzzword tonight.
But
cool.
It's true.
But it's cool. A great organization. It really is.
I mean, when I was in Toronto on New Year's Eve, covering the game, he asked me afterwards, he's like, you're not driving back tonight, are you? And I was like, no, we got an Airbnb and we're staying the night and we're going to go back tomorrow. And he's like, good. Drive safe tomorrow, but have fun tonight. Not too much fun, And it was just very genuine. Like, he cares. He cares about everyone that he comes in contact with. And, it just makes covering the team that much easier.
Yep. I mean, and what I really like is they value the feelings of security and safety, not only for the writers, but also the players. I mean, for those that really watch any sort of post-game coverage on the National Hockey League level, you all know the shots, everyone rushing into the locker room after the game. Players are in all sorts of states of undress or readiness and things like that. That's not the way it is in Cleveland. In Cleveland, we'll get our opportunity to speak with the head coach a few minutes after the game is over. He'll come out to this media area. There's a nice, beautiful backdrop there. We get to talk to him in a little semicircle. And then there's games where we get to actually request players for interviews afterwards. And I think that's great for both sides. That way, if a player, I mean, we as women or as reporters don't have to worry about seeing anything potentially inappropriate or having any sort of comments made, and the players can feel comfortable too. They know that is their safe space. I guess I shouldn't say safe. It's more of a sacred place. It's where they go to de-stress, to get ready and prepare to talk to us. And they don't have to worry about, a whole bunch, a group of beat writers coming in with, phones and cameras in their face. They know they have that place.
I highly enjoy that as well. My grandfather was a football coach for high school, and then he played semi-pro football as well. And he always explained to me how much he didn't like it if other people entered the locker room. So my entire life, and as I was playing sports, whether it be softball, the locker room was my sanctuary. That's where I went, and I would throw a ball into the shower if I struck out too many times, or I would let loose and scream if I needed to, because I'm the reason why we lost, And I feel like players deserve to have that because it is a sanctuary. Yes, you'll get your access. They can come out. I know people want that real raw breakdown of how a player is feeling, but I don't think it's fair to the players either to enter that space. And yes, I know some of these guys make millions of dollars and they should get used to it, but honestly, give them a moment. Give them a chance to collect themselves, especially after a loss, a really bad loss. You don't want them coming out and saying something that they're going to regret, that you're going to regret printing.
Right.
You don't want that. And you want to make sure that they're in the best possible mood when they come out to talk to you. Going into the locker room after a bad game is it's a recipe for disaster. Everyone has a different way for letting loose. And I just feel like the locker room, it's where you get ready. It's where you prepare. It's where you let off steam. And that's how it is. We all need to have that space, just like I need that space in my car. When I leave work for the day, I don't take anyone home. I'm a very kind person, but if someone needs a ride home, I'm sorry, here's money for the bus because I need a moment. I need a moment and it's my car. Like that's
Right.
how.
And I mean, I kind of feel the same way too. Right after the game, I'm glad there's a little bit of a break there because sometimes just everything that happened in the game, if it's a real physical game or real high, high intensity game, sometimes even I need that little bit of time to kind of process what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just sitting up in press row, just taking notes and live tweeting the game. I wasn't even playing, but giving them that space to kind of collect their thoughts, I think is so key and such a great move by that organization because, I mean, like you said, if we get caught in the heat of the moment, who knows what could be said, and that could hurt relationships, especially if they just keep it in the locker room. When they're ready, come on out. So,
Right.
Well, we're running a little long, so let's go ahead and move on to our last segment. Earlier on today, I had asked if anybody had any questions regarding the monsters, and we actually got some really good questions. The first one comes from Jessica Peters from Facebook. She asks, if Nathan Gerby stays with the Columbus Blue Jackets, do you think Zach Dalpe will become the sole captain of the Monsters, or do you think they will split it again? If they do split it, who deserves that second spot?
Oh, so it's all voted on by last year. It was players vote, and I'm pretty sure it'll be that way again. It's very Mike Eves style. So I don't know because he didn't play much of last year. But then so many other guys stepped up to fill that role. I could honestly see Dylan Simpson maybe rocking that C for the whole entire season. And let's be honest, if goaltenders could wear a C, we all know Brad Thiessen would be the captain of that team.
Oh, absolutely. No questions. Yeah. I mean, personally, to the first part of that question, I don't see Nathan Gerby being with the Jackets just because they have made key signings like Nico Koivu, and they're potentially in talks with a couple other players. But there's so much depth up there now that I've seen so many different potential lineups for the Blue Jackets, and Nathan Gerby isn't slotting in. I mean, you got guys like Liam Foudy and all this in there. But if that situation does happen, I would have to agree. I mean, hands down, he would be my choice too. Unless
it's hard, right?
Yeah. I mean,
great guy on and off the ice. He knows how to break up the monotony. He knows how to make it fun. He is a very solid player. He walks the walk. He talks the talk.
Yep.
So does Dylan Simpson.
Yeah, I kept thinking like Stefan Matteau, but it's like, no, he wouldn't be elevated to that level yet. Maybe give him a couple seasons if he's still down with the Monsters, maybe. But yeah, I think we're kind of in the same boat with Dylan Simpson. So we have another question from Chad Hockley, otherwise known as CC. How do you think Beiruther will fit in this season? We kind of talked about it a little bit. But yeah, I would love to see him on that top pairing. But really the question will be, is Glendening going to be up? Is Karlsson going to be up? I think whatever happens with those two players is going to really determine where Beiruther ultimately fits in.
Definitely. That's very true. If for some reason Glendening and Karlsson come down, that's going to be an interesting dynamic because I feel like Glendening would play really, really well with Beiruther. But it's clear they want to keep the organization, not so much the Monsters, but the Jackets organization wants to keep them playing together, Karlsson and Glendening. So then that goes Dylan Simpson. A young guy needs to play with him. It's non-negotiable in my mind. young guys need to be playing with guys that need to be elevated to the next level, that they're there, but they need to learn a little bit more. And Gavin Beiruther doesn't need to learn a little bit more. He just needs to execute a little bit more. And playing with Dylan Simpson won't allow him to execute more. Not that learning's bad, but you'll be hurting the development of other players by not pairing them with Simpson if he gets paired with Simpson.
Mhm.
So, like you said, it'll be interesting to see. We won't really know where he fits in until the roster is set with Columbus.
Absolutely. And our final question comes from Hallie Greenberg. Is there room for Lucas Sedlak to come back if he were to choose to? Unfortunately, I had to look this one up. I'm glad I looked at all this. Unfortunately, the Columbus Blue Jackets no longer have the North American rights to Lucas Sedlak. He became an unrestricted free agent after this last season. Personally, if he were to come back or to choose to, if they still had the rights, I don't think we even get past that first part of him choosing to.
Right.
He seems to be playing very well in the KHL, and I just don't see him coming back. As much of a fan favorite as he was one of my favorites. He still is. I enjoy watching him play. He did, for the roles that he was put in this organization, I think he was very serviceable. But I personally don't see him ever choosing to really come back unless a team made it worth his while.
Yes. So, I mean, the Jackets wouldn't bring him back. If the Monsters did, I'm kind of like Stan Bowman in this aspect, where if there's an opportunity to bring the band back together per se, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
But the band is significantly different now. Very, very different. And I like the way Lucas Sedlak plays, but he was great for the 2015-16 Monsters. He is not great for the 2020-2021 Monsters. So I don't think that there would be room for him because he wouldn't fit what they need or what they want.
Yep. Fortunately, different coaches, the game evolves, sometimes on a very quick time span. Unfortunately, as much as we like him now, it's not to say in a few years, maybe there is a fit, but unfortunately, I think he's going to be staying overseas for the foreseeable future. So,
right. But he's doing well and he seems happy. So what more do you want from a player, right?
Exactly. Yeah, he got named to the All-Star game last season. He did so well. I was so happy for him because he is truly, again, we talked about this a lot, organization from the top down, just good people. I mean, he was always so polite, so nice to the fans and everybody, just one of the guys that always had a smile on his face. And yeah, I would be lying if I said that I did not miss him.
Right. It's tough when good guys don't fit into the system. You know, Udavara, good guy, didn't fit as well. Marcus Hannikainen, good guy, didn't fit. It's tough when you gotta let the good guys go.
Absolutely.
But unfortunately, that's the nature of the beast, and the hockey is a business.
Yep. So speaking of business, that is all that I had on my list to cover. So I'm going to call it a wrap for episode number 1 of Monsters Hockey OT. I know it ran a little long. Elaine, you have been wonderful as always. Thank you again for joining me and sharing your wealth of hockey knowledge and analysis with us today.
Thank you for having me.
And can you let our listeners and our viewers know where they can find you online?
Okay, you can find me on Twitter at I am a rain dancer. So it's letter I, letter M, letter A, and then the word rain dancer. And then my coverage is at jacketscannon.com for hockey. And then in the next few weeks, my website is launching, which is gracedbyrain.com. So I'm looking to have some more in-depth hockey stuff on there as well, but more from the standpoint of what makes a person who they are today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much again. And as for me, I've been Deana Weinheimer. You can follow me on Twitter at SinBinMonsters. This has been Monsters Hockey OT. We'll catch you next time.
Things always go long when I'm on.
All right, let me.
Thanks for tuning in to the Monsters Hockey OT podcast. For all the latest AHL, ECHL, and SPHL minor league hockey news and analysis, head to thesinbin.net. And don't forget to follow the Sin Bin on social media via Facebook and Twitter.
All sports fans have experienced this, right? Something amazing happens on the ice and you think, man, I wish I'd have been filming. Now with the Sporfy app, you can replace that thought with a click. With just one click of a button, Sporfy captures the past 15 seconds of action so you can instantly replay and share your favorite moments all without having to film. And it's easy too. All you have to do is download the app on iOS or Android devices and experience an all-new way of filming sports highlights.